I want to read something written by Dr. Joseph Sizu, and the title of it is Unsung Heroes. Let it never be forgotten that glamour is not greatness. Applause is not fame. Prominence is not eminence. The man of the hour is not apt to be the man of the ages. A stone may sparkle, but that does not make it a diamond. A man may have money, but that does not make him a success. It is what the unimportant do that really counts and determines the course of history. The greatest forces in the universe are never spectacular. Summer showers are more effective than hurricanes, but they get no publicity. The world would soon die but for the fidelity, loyalty, and consecration of those whose names are unhonored and unsung. If you're a golf fan, you know that John Daly won the British Open in 1995. What you might not know is there were some unsung heroes involved there. Corey Pavin, Brad Faxon, Bob Estes, Mark Brooks, and the caddy. The first four names were professionals who also had been in the tournament. And when Constantino Rocca had sunk that 65-foot putt to send it into the playoff, a lot of people thought, well, you know, he snatched it right out of John Daly's hand. And they wondered if John Daly would be able to recuperate and recover and respond to what had happened. And these four guys, Pavin and Faxon and Estes, came over. And Mark Brooks literally supplied Daly with a distance card measuring the exact distances from every spot on the course because Daly had misplaced his. Later, John Daly said that meant everything in the world to him. And the caddy who helped him read those tricky British greens is what made the difference. Oh, Daly gets the publicity. But the question is, had those people not been behind the scenes, would he have won the British Open? I think not. What else have you got to look at? You got to look at the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. Just as a matter of curiosity, is there anybody in the live audience, and as you listen to the recording, is anybody listening to the recording who has a racehorse worth over $1 million? Okay, if you did have one, let me ask you a question. Would you keep him up half the night, letting him drink coffee and booze and smoke cigarettes and eat junk food? And if you did, how many races would he win? I think you'd probably agree he wouldn't win very many races. Would you treat a $10 dog that way? $5 cat? What about a $1 billion body? Oh, but that's mine. I'm doing it to me. Well, what you got against you? Now, let's take a look there. You got to look at the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. In the last 23 years, I've read an average of 3 hours a day. I read a little bit of everything. I try to read my Bible every day and the daily newspaper every day. That way I know what both sides are up to. We need to get a balanced information. And then you got to look at the spiritual side of life. Among other things, you're going to be dead lots longer than you're going to be alive. April 28, 1986 issue of Fortune magazine did a study of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies. Over 50% of them came from lower middle class or poor families. 91% of them were either Catholic, Jewish, or Protestant. There was evidence that they were at least semi-active in their faith, meaning they got their ethics, their morals, their judgment, their values, their wisdom out of the Bible. Now, as the great LBJ would say, come, let us reason together, though that was not an original quote. What I would like for you to think about, if Stephen Covey or Tom Peters or Zig Ziglar or anybody else were to write a book, and 91% of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies said, that's the one I read right there. We all know what would happen, don't we? We know everybody would go down and get a copy of that book. You ever wonder why 65% of the college graduates, 72% of the Rhodes Scholars, 75% of the military academy graduates, 65% of U.S. congressmen, 85% of airline pilots, 85% of FBI agents, and 11 of the 12 astronauts who walked on the moon were all Boy Scouts? according to the American Scholar in the autumn 1992 issue. Well, let me see if I can explain to you why that is. First of all, Boy Scouts talk to themselves. I was a Boy Scout. Now, all of us talk to ourselves. Matter of fact, you talk to yourself on the way down here tonight. I wonder if they're going to get started before we get there. Will there be a seat for me? Where should I park my car? I hope Sally's going to be here. I mean, we do it all the time. We get home now. Where did I put those keys? Oh, what are we going to... I mean, you do it all the time. Now, I'm going to do a lot of talking about self-talking because that is one of the keys to success. Every Thursday night in Yazoo City, Mississippi, I used to stand up there as a Boy Scout and say, on my honor. Boy, isn't that a great word? I will do my best. Isn't that a marvelous word? To do my duty. Isn't that a great word? To God and my country. To obey the Scout law. To help other people at all times. To keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Boy, that is good stuff. And when you look at this Scout law, it says a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Let me ask you a question. How many boss people have we got in the live audience tonight? You hire people from time to time. Can I see your hand? How many would like to have all of your employees with all these qualities right there? Would an individual like that have a pretty good chance of having a little more job security and employment security there? And let me tell you something else the Scouts did. Every Thursday night in Yazoo City, I say every Thursday night, one Thursday night a month we had Court of Honor. And that's where we stood up there, and we were given the merit badges for what we had been doing all during the last go-around. That was a goal we had. We knew exactly what it took to be a first-class Scout. We had the merit badges all laid out. That's goal setting. We knew what it took to be an Eagle Scout. And Eagle Scouts, ladies and gentlemen, are successful in all facets of life that goes far, far beyond the numbers of them. I tell you, if I were raising today a young boy or a young girl, I'd have them in the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, the Girl Scouts. I would have them taking that training. Their motto is be prepared. And you know what they say? Do a good deed every day. Understand now, you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. They teach leadership. I was talking with Scout executives just this week, and they explained to me at the first camp, they have somebody teaching the young Scout how to drive the stakes and, set the tent up. At the next Scout camp, this kid who was learning is now teaching. That's the way you learn things. See, you hear, you forget, you see, you remember. But if you see it and hear it and do it, you understand. And you're successful at it. Do a good deed every day. Now, what's all this self-talk about? Well, here's what it's about. The most important opinion you have is the opinion you have of yourself. And the most important conversation you will have today is the conversation that you will have with yourself. These are values that make such a difference in them. But before we're through, we're going to have you talking to yourself. In the March 1990 issue of USA magazine, they have this study validated that what you say to yourself has a direct bearing on your performance. Dr. Joyce Brothers says you cannot consistently perform in a manner which is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. Where a lot of people say, well, I don't talk to myself, but interesting enough, the same person talks to the driver of another car 3 blocks away. With considerable feeling, I hasten to add. You're not going to believe it, but some people even talk to golf balls. Go in the hole, stay in there. You know exactly what I'm talking about there, don't you? All right. So we're going to have you talking to yourself, and that's going to be fun. Now we're going to have some fun, too. There was a lady in Dallas, 65 years old, watched one of the exercise videos. She got all motivated. She went home, she told everybody, now, I'm going to start an exercise program. I'm going to start walking. Going to walk 5 miles a day every day the rest of my life, starting today. Well, her family tried to talk her out of it, said, now, that's too much. You don't start with 5 miles. Start with 1 mile. Nope, going to walk 5 miles a day every day for the rest of my life. She is now 83 years old, and her family doesn't have a clue as to where she is. Now, We're going to be talking about change. Now, change is stressful, but so is unemployment and bankruptcy. One of the old statements from AA simply says that one definition of insanity is to think you can keep on doing the same thing and somehow or another get different results. Truth is, if you keep on doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep on getting what you've been getting. If you like what you've been getting, that's fine. But if you don't like what you're getting, then, ladies and gentlemen, maybe we need to explore some changes. I want to have you thinking big. Let me share with you what the mission statement. I want you thinking mission statement. You see, our mission statement at the Zig Ziglar Corporation is to be the difference maker in the personal, family, and business lives of enough people to make a positive difference in America and the world. Now, I know that's pretentious, small company, but I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that's our mission. And let me tell you why it's not impossible. Let me share with you why it is possible. Love the story of the grandfather walking the beach with his grandson. And every step or two, the grandfather would reach down and pick up a sand dollar and throw it out to sea. He'd take a couple of more steps, pick up another one and throw it out and another. And finally, the grandson said, "Granddaddy, what are you doing?" And the grandfather said, "Son, these sand dollars are a living organism. If I don't throw them out to sea, they'll die in the hot sun. They've been washed ashore by the tide." And the grandson said, "But Granddaddy, there are thousands of them. What possible difference can it make?" And then the grandfather reached down, picked up another one, and threw it out to sea and said, "To this one, it makes all the difference in the world." We're going to be talking about significant things. We're going to explore why is it that immigrants, I'm talking legal immigrants, whether they're from the Orient or South America or Mexico or Africa or the Middle East or Europe or Scandinavia, legal immigrants are 4 times as likely to become millionaires in America as are the people who are born here. It was explained to me in minute detail by a little 4-year-old girl. 3 or 4 years ago, I got aboard an aircraft in Dallas, headed for Norfolk, Virginia. I was the first passenger aboard. I was seated in seat 2C. A mother and her 3 little ones got aboard right behind me. She was carrying the infant, leading the toddler. The 4-year-old was following behind. And the little 4-year-old got aboard, and she looked left into that cockpit and saw those 3 impressive figures with all of the boards. And she saw the electronic gadgetry there, probably more than she had ever seen in her lifetime. When she turned around, those little eyes were as big as the proverbial saucers. I don't know why the child did it, but she put her little hands on her little legs just above her knees, and she bent down and she looked down that long fuselage and said it all with one word: "Gosh." Gosh. That's what immigrants say when they get to America. They've left it all behind them: friends and family and support groups, climate and culture and language and the whole smear. They come into this land without the things that so many of them have. One of our key people at our company, Chris Dunham, got here with $9 in his pocket 10 years ago. But they came with that dream that we're going to be talking about so much more. And the first thing they do when they land in America is they get the daily paper and they look down the jobs that are available. And they would pick up the Dallas paper and say, "There's 291 jobs advertised today, some of them paying over $5 an hour." Now, I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot of money to you folks, but where I come from, that's 3 days' wages. I'll work not just 8 hours a day, I'll work 12 hours. I'll get my education at a community college. I will live cheaply. I will save my money. I will take advantage of the opportunities that are here. And by the time they find out we got problems, it's too late. They've already made it. It's gosh when they say it. In 1990, the number 1 selling T-shirt in Japan was "We're number 1." The number 1 selling T-shirt in America was "Underachiever," and proud of it. Too many people born in America get up every morning and say, "Big deal." The immigrant gets up and says, "Wow, what a deal. What a difference it makes. We're going to be looking at why that is so important. They come here with a vision, with a mission. A vision is a clearly articulated, results-oriented picture of a future you intend to create. Let me say it again. I'll not tell you this is easy. It's not. I believe and know, as a matter of fact, that life is tough. But I also know that when you're tough on yourself, that life is going to be infinitely easier on you. In a church in Sussex, England, on the wall, here's what they have. A vision without a task is but a dream. A task without a vision is drudgery. But a vision and a task are the hope of the world. I believe that is absolutely true. Not easy, but it's worth it. All of my life I have thought I was an optimist until I heard about this lady who had moved into a retirement home. On the very first day at lunch, she was seated across the table from a gentleman who was there. And after a moment or two, he became concerned about the fact that she was really eyeballing him. I mean, she was staring a hole through him. He grew uncomfortable, and finally he said, "Ma'am," said, I don't understand. Why are you staring at me?" She said, "I can't believe it." He said, "You can't believe what?" She said, "I can't believe that you look exactly like my third husband. The color of your eyes, your mannerisms, the way you talk, your age, your size. I mean, you look exactly like my third husband." He said, "Third husband?" Said, "How many times have you been married?" She said, "Twice." I want you to know that people can change. I want you to know even animals can change. This past week, the redhead and I were down at our home at Holly Lake, Sugarville. We were out walking our little dog. We have a little Welsh corgi, and his name is Taffy. We were out walking, and we met this other couple, and they had a little dog. Except he was about 3 times as big as our little dog. He's a beautiful dog. I mean, gorgeous fur, healthy looking, and a whole bit. And we got to talking, as dog owners always do, and children owners always do, you know. Well, we got the name of the dog, and it was some stretched out name. I don't know what it was. And I said, "Well, you know, that's such a beautiful dog. It looks so healthy." I said, "What are you feeding that dog?" The man said, "Turnip greens." I said, "I never heard of any feeding a dog turnip greens." I said, "My dog wouldn't eat turnip greens." He said, "Mine wouldn't either the first 3 weeks." Too many times we forget that we're measured far more than just by our intellect. For example, Mike Singletary played linebacker for the Chicago Bears. He was all pro. He was drafted as late as he was because his time in the 40-yard dash was not really that good. Not only that, but he is too short. What they could not measure, though, was just how badly he wanted to be the best at what he was doing. Nor did they know at that point that there was a shorter distance that for linebackers was even more important. And that's the way you got off of the ball. And so when he was playing linebacker there for the Chicago Bears, when a running back would break through the line of scrimmage, the typical linebacker would cut him off about 7 or 8 yards down the field. Singletary started so fast that he caught him many times at the line of scrimmage. He held them to 2-yard gains where the others were permitting 5, 6, 7, and 8-yard gains. They couldn't measure that. Emmitt Smith, same story. You know, he's not real fast on the 40-yard dash. We see him run down from behind from time to time. But off the ball, that first accelerated moment there, he is really fast. That's the reason he can get through that hole and pick up that yardage time after time. Jerry Rice, same story. All 3 of these players were drafted later than they would have been because they were just timing the 40-yard dash. Now, what they had not determined at that point was an unusual characteristic Jerry Rice had. And that is when he was running stride by stride with the defender and he looked up and saw the ball in the air, He had another gear reserved especially for that occasion. And though they'd been running neck and neck, all of a sudden he put it in that other gear and he just pulled off and left the guy. Some things you just can't measure. This is what I really want to talk about to you. See, all three of these men had tremendous pride in what they did. Now again, Bible students occasionally say, well, pride is kind of a dirty word. Let me tell you something about words. They change meaning. For example, if I were to look at any one of you and say, why, you're silly, you'd be offended. Unless you knew that the word silly comes from the word selgi, an old English word, which means blessed, happy, healthy, and prosperous. So if anybody ever calls you silly again, you ought to just grin and say, man, you don't know how right you are. You got it right on the button. Now what's this got to do with pride? The Bible speaks of false pride or vanity. Pride is an honest evaluation of that which is good. Think with me as you listen to this tape. Could it possibly be wrong for me to say to my children, I am proud of the values which you have? Could it be wrong for me to say to my staff, I am so proud of the job that you do, the work that you are turning out? See, pride, I love the acrostic it forms. It is personal responsibility in daily endeavors. Pride's important. First 15 years of my career, I was in direct sales. I've knocked on tens of thousands of doors in my lifetime. I don't ever remember getting excited about going out and knocking on doors. I did it because that's one of the things I had to do to make sales. After a period of time, I started putting on cooking demonstrations where the hostess would invite in several couples, and we'd cook up the meal and make the sales. I finally got semi-smart and realized I couldn't do it all myself. Ran an ad in Columbia, South Carolina for a lady to help me. A lady named Jerry Arrowwood responded. Now, to give you an idea of what her personality was like, she was baking cakes and taking in sewing to help support her 3 daughters. Does that tell you something about her? Very quiet, very shy, but also very neat. I told her what I wanted, and in essence, I wanted her to do the cooking, wash the dishes, clean the cookware, and clean the kitchen. I mean, a real top-level job. And we talked about it a little bit, and she said, oh, Zig, she said, I'd love to have that job. I said, I love to cook. Don't mind washing dishes. Don't even mind cleaning the kitchen. But as you can tell, I'm very shy. I got to get a promise from you that you will never call on me to participate in the actual demonstration itself. In other words, Zig, she said, you do the talking, I'll do the working. Well, I could instantly tell that Jerry and I were going to get along real good. I mean, no conflict of interest there. Well, we did for a couple of months. Then one night, my mouth overloaded my back. I made too many promises. I said, Jerry, you got to help me. What you want me to do? I want you to deliver these 6 sets of cookware I've sold and teach the husband and wife how to use it on their own stove. Now, virtually everybody who will ever listen to this is not going to be able to relate to my next statement. Sheer terror filled her eyes. She literally, physically started shaking instantly. I can't do it. I can't do it. You can't do what, Jerry? I can't deliver that cookware and teach those people how to use it on their stoves. I said, Jerry, every night for the last 2 months, that's what you've been doing to the host and hostess. Yeah, but you're always here, and if I foul up, I know you'll bail me out. Jerry, it's not that big a deal. I didn't even come close to making that sale. I mean, she just wasn't buying any of it. We had a 25 to 30 mile drive back home. It was very quiet. Then just as she started to get out of the car, she had been thinking about it, obviously, turned to me and she said, all right, I'll do it. I'm not going to sleep a wink tonight. I'll probably foul up the deal tomorrow. But you've stuck your neck out. You got the people's money. You told them it'd be delivered tomorrow. I don't want to hurt your reputation, so I'll do it. But I'm going to tell you something, Zig. If you ever do this again, said it's going to be your neck, it ain't going to be mine. I'm not going to ever do this again. I mean, she got out of the car, and I don't know if she slept that night or not. I know I didn't. The next night, I got one of the most exciting telephone calls I have ever gotten in my life. Came in about 9 o'clock. It took me about 40 minutes to get that introvert off the telephone. I mean, she, word by word, step by step, blow by blow, gave me minute details and everything that took place. She said when I got to the first family, Zig, they had the coffee made and a dessert on, and we had a wonderful time. They told me how personable I was, what a great personality I had, how professional I was. Zig, she said, I had a wonderful time there. And 3 of the 6 couples had the coffee on and the dessert ready, and they all bragged on me. Zig, she said, I'm telling you, I had the time of my life. I'll do this any time you want me to do it. Didn't happen that year or the next or the next or the next. But a little less than 5 years later, Jerry Arrowwood was the vice president in charge of sales training internationally for a multi-million-dollar cosmetic company. You know what I believe? I believe with all of my heart there'll be tens of thousands of Jerry Arrowwoods who will listen to this tape. And they will rationalize, accurately so, if she can do it, I can do it too. Now I've got one major regret in this whole episode. And that is I did not retain the name and address of the first couple that she delivered that set of cookware to. I'm here to tell you that she approached that first home with fear and trembling. I'm here to tell you that she was in a mad dash. She couldn't wait to get to the second one. It's amazing what a word of encouragement will do. Somebody once said that a lot of people have gone a lot further than they thought they could because somebody else thought they could. That first couple had a profound impact. They are unsung heroes. They really did something for Jerry Arrowwood. Have you ever noticed, normally speaking, that when somebody says, I'm going to tell you something for your own good, then they tell you something bad? Did it ever occur to us that if we're going to tell somebody something good for their own good, that we ought to tell them something good for their own good? It's an old principle. Andrew Carnegie, 100 years ago, had 43 millionaires working for him. First great industrialist our society produced. And a reporter, 100 years ago, a millionaire was a rich dude. I mean, that sucker had money. And so a reporter got wind of it who asked him, Mr. Carnegie, how on earth did you hire 43 millionaires? And Mr. Carnegie said, well, none of them were millionaires when I hired them. Then what did you do to develop them to the degree that they became so valuable to you, you could pay them so much money they became millionaires? And Carnegie taught us a great lesson when he said, you develop people in the same way you mine gold. When you go in a gold mine, you expect to move tons of dirt to get an ounce of gold. But you don't go in there looking for the dirt. You go in there looking for the gold. See, I happen to believe there's a gold mine inside of everybody that we deal with. I believe that people have got a great deal more inside of them than they realized. The Jerry Arrowwood story, you see, it took an awful lot of courage for her to take that first step. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's going ahead despite the fear. When she got that first round of applause, Shakespeare said, the applause of a single human being is of great consequence. When she got that, she liked it so much, she started doing other things. She became a student. She started learning. She became excited about growing in life. And when people are growing, then they are generally excited. When you're learning things, that's what creates the excitement. She was a very humble person. Now, humility is one of the great qualities of leadership. Now, that doesn't mean that when a person is humble that they think less of themselves. It simply means they think of themselves less. Over a period of time, Jerry's confidence grew, but it never turned to arrogance. You see, when you get arrogant, that's when Buster Douglas knocks out Mike Tyson. And for the benefit of those of you who are not fight fans, that's when Mike was the unbeatable heavyweight champion of the world, and Buster Douglas was almost a nobody. They weren't even betting on it because he was such a prohibitive favorite. And that was the last fight Buster Douglas ever won right there. What Jerry Arrowwood did was she retained her humility, she built her confidence, she worked very, very hard. She became that student, but she took what she had and developed it. That's one of the reasons I will say so many times to you, you need to listen to your tapes over and over. You see, they keep hope alive. When you hear these things going in your mind over and over, you're going to get a lift, and we're going to be talking about that more and more as we go. Throughout this series of recordings, I will say it, I bet you 50 times, that you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. Now, I'm certain that when Jerry Arrowwood got out of the car that night to deliver that cookware, she wasn't thinking, well, you know, Zig's been telling me I can have everything in life I want if I'll just help enough other people get what they want. And what I want to be is vice president in charge of sales training for that big old cosmetic company. And if I deliver these cookware sets, then I'll get to be the vice president in charge. Now, isn't that insane? She did it because it was the right thing to do. I was in a jam. She felt a loyalty to me and a concern for me as a friend and as her employer. It's a philosophy I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a tactic. Now, let me ask all of you a question. How many of you in this live audience, and those of you listening to this tape, how many of you consider yourself to be honest and at least reasonably intelligent? Can I see your hands, please? All right? Now, for those of you who did not raise your hands, was it the honesty part or the intelligence part that created the turmoil inside? Okay, I'm just teasing. I saw all of the hands go up. Now, let me ask you honest, intelligent people a question. How many of you, as a general rule, get more work done on the day before you go on vacation than you normally get done in 2, 3, even 4 days? Can I see your hands, please? All right. Now, if we can figure out why and how and repeat it every day without working any harder, does it make sense that you'd be more valuable to yourself, your company, your family, and your community? Does that make sense? Answer is yes. I help you with the tough ones, okay? No question about it. Yes, it does make a whole lot of sense. So let's see if we can do a little exploring and find out why. And here's the first thing. First of all, you've already said to me that you are honest and intelligent. Now, I want to make another profound statement. What you do off the job determines how far you go on the job. Every athlete knows that. Every entertainer knows that. Every public speaker ought to know that. If every other worker doing anything would learn that, then they would be getting ahead much faster in life. They did a study on the typical American plant, and the person working the line on an hourly basis watched an average of 30 hours of television a week. The person in charge of that line watched an average of 25 hours of television a week. The foreman watched an average of 20 hours of television a week. Are you kind of noticing a little trend here? The plant superintendent watched an average of 15 hours of television a week. The vice president of the plant watched an average of 12 to 15 hours of television a week. The president watched an average of 8 to 12 hours of television a week. The chairman of the board watched an average of 4 to 8 hours of television a week, and 50% of that time they were watching training videos. Now let me ask you a question. What do you think would happen to that person who's watching 30 hours of television a week if they were to take 10 of those hours and get involved in doing what you're doing right now, listening to these tapes, reading good books, attending valuable seminars, getting that education? Is there a chance that they are a victim of circumstances, or is it because they're a victim of inertia? It's easy to go home and sit down in front of the boob tube and, let it dominate or run their life. See, the television doesn't have that much good information. It does some things to you, but the biggest damage television does is what it keeps you from doing. Keeps you from talking to folks, keep you from exercising, keep you from reading, keep you from learning, keep you from associating with other people, developing friendships, and 101 other things. Well, now, what all this leads up to is on the night before, the day before vacation, how many of you got out a little sheet of paper And you said to yourself, now self, tomorrow you got to do this and this and how many of you literally did that? Now in its simplest form, that is goal setting. I do a lot of public seminars where I'm fortunate enough to be on the program with some real celebrities in life. I mean, President Ford, President Bush, Schwarzkopf, Colin Powell. Is that okay for name dropping? I mean, people of that nature. Now, don't misunderstand. I don't classify them as buddies, okay? I'd love to, but don't misunderstand. I am proud of the fact that the last time I saw Colin Powell, he did give me a big old hug, and since he's one of my heroes, I kind of like that. But anyhow, I do a lot of those public seminars. Now, they did a study, and who is they? They is David Jensen, the Chief Administrative Officer for the Crump Institute for Biological Imaging, Department of Pharmacology, UCLA School of Medicine. Now, with a title like that, you know he is somebody, don't you, okay? Well, he's a good friend of mine, too. He did a study on the people who came to the seminars. It represents a broad section of American industry. Everybody from psychiatrists and truck drivers to school teachers and household executives, salespeople, entrepreneurs, business owners, all kinds of people. And those who set goals and developed a plan of action to get there earned an average of $7,401 a month. Those who did not set goals earned an average of $3,397 a month. There's over $4,000 a month difference. Now, here's my question. How many of you, as you listen to this tape, I want you to answer the question to yourself. Do you have time to invest another 10 minutes a day to pick up another $4,000 a month? Now, here's the rest of the story. The survey also showed that not only did they earn the additional money, but they were happier and healthier and got along better with the folks at home. People who know where they're going and have a plan to get there are easier to get along with. That's what this really does boil down to. You set those goals. And then you got organized. In other words, you said, well, now, first of all, I'm going to do this one. You kind of lay it out, kind of see your hand, all right? Now, you get organized. Now, organization is important. Our controller at our company is well organized. He even proofreads the Xerox copies we send out. I mean, she's detail-oriented is what I'm saying, okay? And then once you got it organized, you accepted responsibility. You said, this is what I am going to do. You accept the responsibility. Now, that's something a lot of us don't like to do, and it goes back to Adam and Eve. You remember the story. They were in the Garden of Eden. God gave it all to them, said, you can have everything you want. There's a tree right in the middle of the garden. Leave it alone. Don't eat it. You don't do that. Well, you know what happened. They ate the fruit on the tree. To this day, a lot of people say it was the apple in the tree that caused man's problems. Not so. It was the pear on the ground that created the problem. Well, you know what happened? God came walking in the garden that evening and he said, Adam, where are you? Now, God knew where Adam was, but he wanted Adam to say, over here, Lord. Adam, did you eat that fruit? Now, God knew the answer, but he wanted Adam to confess up. But Adam did the manly thing and has passed it on to every generation since. He said, Lord, let me tell you about that woman. Lord said, Eve, did you eat that fruit? She kept the ball rolling. She said, Lord, let me tell you about that snake. And of course, snake didn't have a leg to stand on. Now, for the benefit of you Bible students, I know theologically I don't have a leg to stand on with that last statement either. But here's the point I'm making. You don't have a leg to stand on. I don't have a leg to stand on when we constantly blame other people and the past. Now, realistically, if somebody fouled up your past, come on, you're not going to give them permission to ruin your future, are you? What we got to do is we got to get serious about doing something about our future. We got to get serious about doing things with our lives. Now, let me go ahead and say something you might already have noticed as this kind of breaks down. I speak and write at the 7th grade, 9th month level. Now, the reason I do that deliberately is because I learned a few years ago that if you kept it there, that even the college professors would be able to follow right along with you and understand what you're saying. And see, college professors are people. But like my good friend, Dr. Steve Franklin, a college professor at Emory University, says, you know, Zig, the great truths in life are simple. You don't need 3 moving parts and 4 syllables for it to be significant. Think about it for a moment, Zig. He said there are only 3 pure colors on the face of this earth. But look at what Michelangelo did with those colors. There are only 10 mathematical digits, but look at what Einstein did with them. Only 7 notes, but look what Chopin and Beethoven and Vivaldi did with those 7 notes. Look at what Elvis did with 2. I mean, it just doesn't have to be that significant. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, delivered after the Battle of Gettysburg, which, as you know, took place during the War of Northern Aggression. It just depends on where you got your education. I mean, 262 words, that's all there are in that address. 202 of them, 1 syllable. Simple, direct. John 3:16, 25 words. 21 of them, 1 syllable. I believe in keeping it simple. I believe in making it so plain that nobody really can miss what is being said. Now, you got organized and you accepted the responsibility and you made the commitment. Now, you know, most people are about as committed as a kamikaze pilot on his 39th mission. I mean, they just don't really take it seriously. I well remember January 7th, 1992, I rode past the Plano, Texas Recreation Center. That's where I do my exercises and weightlifting. Had to stop the weightlifting. I was bulking up, and a lot of folks thought I was on steroids. So, you know, we can't have that. Now, the reason I rode past was because there was not a parking space. I was back over there the next day, and this time I squeezed in, but in the Nautilus room, they had lines behind every machine, 3, 4, 5, 6 deep. Well, you can't exercise 3 minutes and rest 15. So I went back outside to the desk and I asked the young man, I said, Sean, what on earth's going on? Well, Sean kind of laughed. He said, oh, Zig, he said, don't give it a thought. He said, give us about 3 weeks. This will be back to normal. These are our New Year's resolution people. Now, you see, a New Year's resolution is really not anything on earth but a New Year's confession. That's all it is. I confess I got to lose some weight. I confess I got to get better organized. I confess I got to get more education. I confess I got to spend more time with my family. I confess I got to quit smoking. I mean, that's all. And the confession list, as long as it's convenient, involves no trouble, takes no time, involves no pain, and they remember it. But now, having said that, let me also go ahead and say that that confession is extraordinarily important because it can be step 1. And you got to have step 1 before you can take step 2. Now, where it gets to be important is this. If you will tell enough people, I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to get an education. I'm going to get better organized. And you repeat it enough times, all of a sudden, one day, it finally breaks through. You know, a message goes 24,000 miles around the world in less than 1/10 of a second. Sometimes it takes years for it to get that last 1/16 of an inch. You know what I'm talking about, don't you, okay? One day, though it finally gets through, you confess it enough time, and then you verbally stomp your foot and say, I'm going to do it. Now you've made a decision. And the way the mind works is really very simple. Once you've made a decision, then you say to yourself, now, self, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to get yourself together a plan, feller. Or lady, you got to get a plan of action. Whether you build a house, want to build a better marriage, get a better education, lose 37 pounds, whatever it is, if you have made a decision, start with the confession, moves to a decision, then you automatically say, hey, I got to get a plan of action. Now, once you've got a logical plan of action that you believe in, then you say, I can do it. Now, you've made the commitment. Now, why is commitment so important? Regardless of what area of life you're in. If you've made a commitment, whether it's to get the education, maintain the marriage, lose the weight, or whatever, if you've made the commitment when you hit the wall, not if, when you hit the obstacle, the first thing you think about is, boy, how can I solve the problem? If you haven't made the commitment, boy, how can I get out of this deal? See, we find what we are looking for. Now, on the way to work the next morning, you made the commitment. On the way to work, you're just talking to yourself like crazy. Well, the first thing I'm going to do when I get there is this, and boy, I know I can handle this, and I know I can do that. Yeah, I'll take care of that. Now, when you get there, there's only one change in your organizational structure that you should change. Instead of the most important thing for number one, you ought to put the most disagreeable thing. If you got to go deal with Charlie, if that sucker's been a thorn in your side and you got to handle the situation today, you go deal with Charlie. Now, if he's number 5 on the list, you finish number 1 and you're thinking about Charlie. Finish number 2, got to deal with Charlie. Finish number 3, got to deal with Charlie. Get Charlie out of the way. Like this old boy down home says, friend, if you're going to have to swallow a frog, you just don't want to look at that sucker too long. I mean, he ain't going to get no prettier. He really is not. So, you get there on time, maybe even a little earlier. Now, the boss likes that. I mean, she's probably watching you. And so, when you get there on time, even a few minutes early, on the day before vacation, I guarantee you, you're at least on time. And you get there, and you don't look around and say, well, I wonder what I ought to do first. I mean, you've got a plan of action. You're a self-starter. And you are optimistic that you're going to be able to get the job done. You become the kind of person that would take their last $2 and buy a money belt. I mean, basically, that's what you are. Or, I tell folks I'm so optimistic, I'll put a dime in the parking meter while the redhead goes shopping. Now, if that's not optimism, I don't know what optimism is. Okay. Now, you get started, you get your job done, and you see that start's so important. Joe Saba put it this way. You don't have to be great to start, but you got to start to be great. See, a lot of people never get started. You're extremely enthusiastic. I mean, you're just so carried away with it. And then let me talk about enthusiasm just a minute. You see, enthusiasm's kind of like running in the dark. You might get there, but you might get killed on the way. Blind enthusiasm, if you're going in the wrong direction, that just means you're going to get in the wrong place quicker. Now, what you've got here, though, is a plan of action. Enthusiasm with a plan of action will produce dramatic results, and you're going on a lighted path. That's exactly what you are doing, and you are one more highly motivated person. You decisively move from one thing to another. You focus on the issue at hand. You discipline yourself to stay with the task until that task is completed. If somebody comes along and says, hey, did you watch that game last night? Scrimmage between those two teams. Boy, wasn't that neat? You say, look, I'd like to do that. I've got some things to do. How many of you have noticed that as a general rule, people with nothing to do want to do it with you? Have you noticed that? Okay. Well, now, the interesting thing is that when you are organized and disciplined, moving from one task to another, somehow or another, they just don't get in the way. They see that you've got something to do. And that enthusiasm and discipline shows up. Kind of like little Johnny. Now, he was a one enthusiastic kid. Second grader. One Friday afternoon, teacher said, now, class, anybody has any unusual experience this weekend, let me know on Monday. The class will want to hear about it. Well, on Monday morning, little Johnny was a pistol. I mean, he was sitting there, and that kid was all over the place sitting still. I mean, and the teacher could tell, Johnny, I bet you had a good weekend. Yes, ma'am, I sure did. What'd you do, Johnny? Me and my daddy went fishing, and we caught 75 catfish. They all weighed 75 pounds. Now, Johnny, son, that's not the truth. Yes, ma'am, it is. My dad is a great fisherman. I'm even better than he is. We caught 75 catfish. They all weighed 75 pounds. Now, Johnny, if I were to tell you that on the way to work this morning, on the way to school this morning, just before I got here, a big old 1,200-pound grizzly bear ran up out of nowhere and was just about to grab me and eat me up, when suddenly a little old 8-pound yeller dog jumped up, grabbed him by the nose, threw him down, bounced him back and forth, broke his neck and killed him. Johnny, would you believe that? He said, oh, yes, ma'am. I said, as a matter of fact, that's my dog. You kind of put all of this together. You see, the discipline is important. The enthusiasm is important. The persistence is important. You see, 175 of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies are former U.S. Marines. 26 of our presidents served in the military. Now, what do they teach in the military? They teach discipline and persistence and focus and organization and direction, and all of these things are right there. And these are the qualities that would make you a better husband, a better wife, a better parent, a better employee, a better employer, the whole bit. And long about now, you know, that positive mental attitude, that old PMA kicks into gear. I don't believe there's anybody in America that is as excited about the positive mental attitude as I am. Now, one of the reasons I am is because I believe I understand what positive thinking will let you do. I also understand what positive thinking won't do. I get very concerned when I hear some highly motivated, enthusiastic, gung-ho guy or gal get up and say, man, with positive thinking, you can just do anything. That ain't positive thinking, that is New Age thinking. Now, New Age thinking basically says all is one and one is all, and I am God. Well, there are three things I know. Number one, there is a God. Number two, it ain't me. Number three, it ain't you either. Okay. Now, the reality is positive thinking won't let you do anything. But it will let you do everything better than negative thinking will. In the live audience, can you buy that? Listening to this tape, are you buying that? You see, positive thinking will let you use the ability you have, and that is awesome. But there are some things it won't let you do. For example, Shaquille O'Neal, over 300 pounds of highly motivated, enthusiastic, revved up, raring to go basketball player, one of the most positive thinkers I've ever seen, but he would be a total failure as a jockey. Nate Newton plays the line for the Dallas Cowboys, 340 pounds, give 100, take 100. Now, Nate Newton, also outstanding, positive, optimistic, really a neat guy. He just flat couldn't make it, though, in ballet. I mean, I don't care how positive he got. I'm positive, but I can't slam dunk a basketball. And I've tried. Twice. You know. If you need major surgery, I'm positive, but I don't recommend me. No, positive thinking won't let you do anything, but it will let you do everything better than negative thinking will. Let me tell you about positive thinking. When we walked in here earlier tonight, this room was pitch black. They flipped some switches. It became lighted. Flipping switches didn't generate electricity. It released it. Had it not already been generated, we'd still be in a dark room. The youngster who thinks they can go in to take a test and pass it with positive thinking but hadn't studied, he's going to flunk that sucker. Now, you can just count on it. But if he has studied, the positive thinking will release the information and he can put it on paper. We can document hundreds of cases where when kids changed their attitude, they were able to call up the information and make dramatically better grades in class and in any area of their life. The truth is, you became a very, very positive individual because you had a plan of action and you became a team player. Now, team play is obviously something that is extremely important. Positive thinking and team play kind of go together. I love the story Lou Holtz tells. Incidentally, Lou Holtz has been using our goal-setting system ever since he was at the University of Arkansas. His Notre Dame team follows it. He uses this system to help his team pass and graduate. That's their first goal. And then he uses it to blend them into the team. One of Lou's favorite stories, which I love the most, he's telling a story about this fellow's out in a rural area and his car slid in the ditch. There's a farmhouse close by, and he went to the farmer and said, "Can you help me?" He said, "I don't have a jack." The old farmer said, "Well, I got old mule Dusty, but he's kind of hard of hearing and getting kind of old. I don't know if he can or not, but I'll be willing to give it a try." Well, they got old Dusty, they took him out, and they hooked him up to the car, and the old farmer got behind him, and he, in a very loud voice, said, "Pull, Billy, pull!" Nothing. "Pull, Roscoe, pull!" Nothing. "Pull, Charlie, pull!" Nothing. Pull, Dusty, pull. And old Dusty pulled that car right out of the ditch. Got out of the ditch, and the fellow said, I don't understand. You were calling on Billy, and you were calling on Roscoe and Charlie, and there wasn't but one mule there. What are you doing? He said, well, like I say, Dusty's getting kind of old. He's hard of hearing, can't see very good. Tell you the truth, he got a little negative in his old age. And if he thought he had to pull that car out by himself... But as long as he thought he had a lot of help there, the team was with him, he figured he could do it, and out it came. But I make another important point. Until he called Dusty by name, Dusty didn't move. That's one of the keys right there. The name of another person is very, very important. Giant Belgian horse on its own can pull 8,000 pounds. Hook him up with another giant Belgian, the team will pull 17,000 pounds. Send him off to school, teach him to pull in harmony, the team will pull over 25,000 pounds. Can you imagine what would happen if we could get every member of your family, every member of your company? It's awesome. One of the reasons our mission statement is so pretentious in some people's mind. I believe the day is going to come when we're going to have everybody in our company on the same page, pulling in the same direction with the same objectives. And when that happens, we will absolutely explode. You can count on it. And the same thing will happen in your own company. Teamwork, so important. The Houston Rockets this year, the world's champions again of basketball. Knowledgeable basketball people, and that does not include me, say there were at least 4 other teams that had much better personnel than the Houston Rockets did. But they functioned as a team, and they had a team leader whom they greatly respected in Hakeem Olajuwon, and they won, again, the world's championship. On that day before vacation, the interesting thing is, when the day was over, although you had gotten 2 or 3 times as much done as you normally get done, you were highly energetic. I mean, at the end of that day, man alive, you were jumping up and down and bouncing around, and you couldn't wait to get home. And on the way home, again, you were talking to yourself, and the energy level was enormously high. You didn't have a tired bone in your body. You know when you're the most exhausted? When you've tried to fool the boss all day long. When you've had to make work, and act like you're busy. Those are the days that you really are exhausted. But you are so delighted, your competence and your creativity takes a giant step forward. You're on a roll, that momentum builds, and man alive, you're getting things done, and you feel so good about yourself. That self-image just blossoms. You can sign your name to it. One of the things that Jerry Arrowwood took pride when she was washing dishes and cleaning that cookware was the way she could leave that kitchen so spotless. The way she could make that cookware shine. The way she washed those dishes and left that lady's kitchen always in much better shape than it was when she got there. That's what I'm talking about right there. When you sign your name with pride to what you've done, you will be doing a better job. And on the way home, you were so excited. You were talking to yourself all the way. Can't wait to get to tell my husband what I've done or my wife what I've done. I want to share this with a kid. Boy, are we ever going to have us a great vacation. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Now let me ask all of you a question. Have I said a word about working harder, or am I talking about working smarter? Answer smarter. I help you on these tough ones, okay? I noticed there a little doubt there and a lot of the faces there. And I hate to see a blank face. I really do. Okay. Now let me ask you a question. If this worked so well in organizing your job, on your career, do you think there's a chance that if you planned your family time, if you planned your vacation time, if you planned your exercise time, if you planned your social time, that you would get more of each one of them done? What do you think? You know what I believe with all my heart, and I might be wrong? I believe I work more hours than 99% of the people who will ever listen to this. 5 o'clock this morning, I was working. At 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock yesterday morning, at 5 o'clock the day before, I was working. And here it is, 10 o'clock, and I'm still at it. And yet I'm here to tell you that I probably spent more time with my wife today than you did with your mate or your children. We spent an hour at breakfast. We spent nearly an hour at lunch. We spent 45 minutes at dinner. And we had a lot of conversations in between there, some of them short. But what I do, and I also got in my 46-minute walk this morning at high speed. You got to plan the things if they're going to happen. They're not accidentally going to come about. When you put it all together, you just get so many more things done. Now, let me ask you really what we're getting at, and I think this is so important. I'm talking about running your day by the clock and your life with a vision. Your day by the clock and a life with a vision. If you put it together in that way, then you can get so many more things done. Now, those of you in this live audience, let me ask you, how many again of you are employers? Can I see your hands? How many of you employers would fire an employee who came to work and performed every day like we're talking about right here? Anybody here fire one? Or would you say, hey, I want to make that man or that woman a lifetime deal. I want them to be with me forever. Matter of fact, I've got a little raise in mind for them. Who knows, maybe even a promotion. Are we talking about increasing and improving that employment security? Isn't that really what we're doing there? Now, but you might say, but Zig, suppose, the same thing happens to me that happened to my buddy. He worked at this company 23 years. And then they merged last year. Or 3 years ago, the boss's son got out of college and came home, and that young whippersnapper took my job, and now I don't have a job. No fault of mine, but I lost it. What do I do now? Well, let me ask you a question. If you'd worked every day like you do the day before vacation, what kind of recommendation do you think you'd get? Would it be fabulous? What about your sales talk when you go to apply for the job and the boss, the person doing the interviewing says, what experience have you had? If you can look at them and say, well, I've had 41 years experience at being absolutely honest. My tests all indicate that I'm a very intelligent human being. My goals are clearly defined in what I do. I'm a well-organized person. I accept responsibility for performance. I make commitments and keep those commitments. The resume I gave you, my work record shows it clearly. And I am a very punctual person. I'm always there when I'm supposed to be. I get started when I get there. Think of the self-talk, or the sales talk that you can give to that person. And you get to the end of it and say, you know, I have a great self-image. I'm highly competent. And I believe these are the qualities that your company needs. I believe this is the experience you need. And the neat thing is I can start immediately. Unless it would be better to wait till Monday morning. What would you prefer, incidentally? Now, before you might say, but now, Zig, come on, man. Is that real? It's as real as today and tomorrow, folks, because the world is always looking for somebody with these qualities. I'll guarantee it. Let me ask you a question. If your company goes belly up, will you get another job because you worked for XYZ company or because you performed for XYZ company? Now, whose responsibility is it to perform? We're not victims, is what I'm saying. Yes, there are things that we can do to build that employment security. There is no question about that. Now, as we look at the list we've been talking about, how many of those qualities right there are positive qualities? Anybody? Okay, in other words, you think honesty, intelligence, goals, organized, responsibility, you think all of those are positive qualities. Am I right on that? How many of them are leadership qualities? How many of them do you have? That was pitiful. We're talking about you. We're talking about your performance on the day before vacation. Now, you on this recording listening in your car, I hope you didn't hesitate like that. We're talking about you. Now, let me tell you something kind of interesting. We deny our talents and abilities because to acknowledge or to confess them would commit us to use them. Oh, now isn't that something? But let's look at a couple of other thoughts. You're the only one who can use your ability. It's an awesome responsibility. Oliver Wendell Holmes said, it's tragic in America that we waste our natural resources. But it's infinitely more tragic because so many people go to their grave with their music still in them. All of that talent, all of that ability. I think of the Vince Roberts and the Jerry Arrowwoods, and I think of all of these other people that something had to happen to bring it out and put it to work. You got to use that ability or it goes to the grave with you. You see, tragically, when you deny your talents and abilities, you deny yourself, your family, your company, and society the fruits of those abilities. I'm going to ask you in this live audience, for the benefit of the listening audience on the tapes, I'm going to ask you to do something right now. I'm going to ask you to stand up right where you are. And since you've confessed that these all are the qualities that you have, I'm going to ask you to stand up and claim them right now. So right there, stand up, and as you're listening to this tape, you go right along with us. Now, I'm going to start it. I'm going to call out my name. You call out your name. I'm going to say, I, Zig Ziglar, and then I'll go right down it. And here's the way it'll go. I, Zig Ziglar, am an honest, intelligent, goal-directed person, okay? I, Zig Ziglar, am an honest, intelligent, goal-directed person. I am, come with me, organized, responsible, and committed. I am punctual, a self-starter. I'm optimistic and enthusiastic. I'm highly motivated, decisive, and focused. I am disciplined, persistent, and have a tremendous positive mental attitude. I'm a team player, energetic, competent, and I have a magnificent self-image. Now, everybody, before you sit down, look around. Do you see any bodies laying around? Everybody survived, did they not? Not once in all the years I've been doing this have we ever had a loss because of what we just did right there. Okay, now, have a seat if you will, and let's look at something else. Taking just those qualities that we've discussed, I've added common sense here at the bottom because all of this really is just common sense. But taking these day before vacation qualities there, how many of you believe that if you used them every day, that you would be happier, healthier, more prosperous, more secure, have more friends, greater peace of mind, better family relationship, and more hope for the future? Can I see your hand? Doesn't it make sense? Just take what you got, use it, and then develop some more. Now, let me also say to you that motivation is the key. Motivation is the key. Now, there's a lot of confusion about what motivation is all about. The media frequently ask me, you on tired of those folks, 3 hours at that seminar? Yeah, you're going to get them excited. Hey, most of them aren't excited when they get there. Are you going to get them more excited? I better, because if I don't, they won't be back. And that'll be a shame, because my next talk is a whole lot better than this one. But you see, I got sense enough to know that if this one's not good, there's not going to be a next one as far as you are concerned. Well, Zig, let me ask you, where will these people be a month from now, a year from now? You know what they're asking me? Is motivation permanent? The answer is no, it's not. Neither is bathing. Now, hey, does that mean I'm opposed to bathing? I'm very excited about taking a good shower bath. I hope you are too. Especially if you use that new 23-hour deodorant. The company that makes it figures everybody's entitled to some time to themselves, There's another one called stereo. It doesn't kill the odor, but at least you can't tell where it's coming from, all right? Motivation is extremely important. Now, motivation gets you going. Habit gets you there. Make motivation your habit, and you'll get there quicker, and you will have more fun on the trip. I'm going to do something, and for the benefit of the people listening on their tape players, which most of you obviously will be, you've got this in the package that came along with your series. And what I want to get the live audience to do, I've placed an overhead, and the overhead depicts a figure, and it shows a series of squares. I want you to count those squares, and most of you how many of you already started counting the squares before I said anything, okay? Most people automatically say, well, there's 4, 8, there's 16. And then almost immediately everybody said, well, shucks, the whole thing is a square, that makes it 17. But right here in the middle, there is another square, and so that brings it up to 18. But I want you to notice that right here is another square, and that's 19. That means here's another one, that's 20. That means here's another one, that's 21. And here's another one, that means there actually are 22. But I want you also to notice that right up here in the upper left-hand corner, there's a square, that's 23. That means here's another one, that's 24. That means here's another one, that's 25. That means here's another one, there are 26. But if you'll just come across 3 and down 3 and across 3 and up 3, that's one, that's 27. That means here's another one, that's 28. That means here's another one, that's 29. And that means here's another. Folks, there are 30 squares there. Now, I'm not trying to trick you, but I tell folks I'm like a cross-eyed discus thrower. I mean, I don't set the records, but man, I keep the crowd alert. And you know, I think that is very important. Now, here's my question. How many squares did I add after I drew the original figure? Anybody? 14. All right. Some said 14. Let me ask it in a little stronger way. How many squares did I add? None. All I did was said, here's one, 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 here's one. Now, I have been leading up to something for the last 2.5 hours. And that 2.5 hours basically is the question I'm going to ask now. Here's what I've been leading to. How much more did you know about your job the day before you went on vacation than you did 24 hours earlier? Anybody? Okay. How many of you will stand by your earlier statement that you get 2 or 3 times as much work done on that day than you normally get done on any other day? Can I see your hands, please? Most of the hands went up. Now, there's a reason for it. It's called motivation. See, motivation is the spark that lights the fire of knowledge. It fuels the engine of accomplishment. It maximizes and maintains momentum. Now, think with me for a moment. How great would it be, as you listen to your tapes, to know that you've got a sales meeting that you and I are holding every day of your life. When you go to work, we're conducting a sales meeting. Now, what that means is you'll get to your job excited. The minute you leave the house, you ought to be thinking about your job. The minute you leave your job, you ought to be thinking about your home. You ought to be preparing to get into work and then preparing to get back into your job at home or your life at home, because they all do go together. Did a study on 1,139 CEOs of major companies. Average income, $356,000. That's pretty good income. Their number one priority, their family. Number one asset was their integrity.